Hi, future me. It's August 2021. You're in the ER again, but I know it's gonna get better. It has to. All I want is for my diet to clear up and to be able to eat just more than chicken and rice. And I just want to be able to walk up and down my street and be able to play video games. That's all I want, really. I'm not asking for much. Anything after that it would be a blessing, but I'm just sick of being this way. I don't want to be this way anymore. Hopefully I have a video where I'm talking about how much better I am, and I'm playing video games and eating food and walking up and down my street. Man, I would do anything for that. You'll get there one day, future me. I promise.
How's it going, everybody? Miguel here from CFS Recovery. This is going to be an awesome video. You guys are probably familiar with Junior. He's actually a current coach in the Recovery Jumpstart program. And just about a year ago, he was in the program, actually still working his way through adjustment periods, having symptoms, still not fully functional. But it's super cool to have him on just about a year later after going through this whole journey. And the whole reason I wanted to bring him on is really to show you guys how much can change in 6, 8, 10, 12 months and what life is like after you come out of this thing. So Junior, I'm sure we could talk for probably the whole day on this topic for hours and hours. And we spent a lot of time together during your recovery and even after, just chatting. For people who don't know you or haven't seen you, or it's their first time coming to this channel, maybe just introduce yourself, where you're from, and very briefly, what was your journey with recovery, CFS?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, man. Glad to be back. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Junior. Currently, since I started the program, it's been about a year and a few months now. I first started the program back in January of 2022. So yeah, it's been about a year and some change. When I started the program, I was very debilitated. I couldn't even walk to my mailbox. I had a multitude of symptoms, main one being fatigue, but also alongside that, I had tons of brain fog, tons of gut issues, tons of dizziness, a lot of anxiety, rotating body pains here and there. And while undergoing CFS recovery and learning all the things that I learned behind the scenes inside the program, I'm now currently living a life in which I never thought I would be able to ever live again. Just this year alone, because right now, Miguel, it is, just looking at my watch here, just turned April. Yeah. April 6th.
2023.
Yeah. So we are 4 months into 2023. And just within these 4 months, I survived COVID again. I didn't relapse into CFS. I went on a cruise. I did a wedding for my best friend. I've been to the movies multiple times. I'm now planning trips to go to California a little bit later this year, and started working full time again, starting to be able to pretty much exercise and walk. And I don't really have limits when it comes to energy anymore. I can eat whatever I want. I remember the first time I ate pizza, I texted Miguel and I was like, this is literally one of the best days ever. But yeah, life looks more than normal, if anything. I'm better now than I was even before I got sick. So I'm just really happy to be here and be able to share my story with you guys and hopefully inspire some of you guys to make it on the other side too. So thanks for having me, bro.
Awesome, man. It's been great seeing you progress over the last 12 months and a bit longer, because you actually joined the program exactly about 15 months ago. It was January of 2022. And when you started, you were mainly couchbound. You weren't too functional. You're still working your way back into things. 6 months later, you were working another job, right? You went back to your old job. And then 6 months after that, you're a Thriver coach, right? So a lot has happened. There's been a lot of change in the last 12 to 15 months since you started the program, and you just shared some of these epic things you've done. I know there's a lot of people out there wondering, Junior, aren't you ever scared you're going to relapse? Or do you ever have times where you have to pull back significantly, or you have a big adjustment period? Kind of touch on that a little bit.
Yeah. When it comes to being on the other side, the great thing about this program is that not only did it help me recover, but it helped me fully understand what was happening to my body. And it helped me really understand the ins and outs of the mind-body connection and how important that is in really making sure that I never get sick again. Like I said earlier in the call, I got COVID this year after I had recovered. And a lot of people would have that first thought of, oh, he's going to get long COVID again. He has the potential to get long COVID again, but I don't.
Yeah, you got COVID actually twice, right? Because you also got it in the fall, and then you also got it a couple months ago, and you got it hit you pretty hard.
Yeah.
And I remember because you were pretty much recovered, you were pretty functional, you were going on jogs, you were working nearly full time, and starting a new job too as a coach in this program, which is that in itself is stressful because you're learning a lot of new things. And then you also got COVID on top of that. You've had it twice technically in the last 6 months. And while it did suck to you back for a week or two, maybe 3, there were times where you were a bit uncertain of what was going to happen. You used a lot of the principles that helped get you out of this CFS illness to help you get out of that kind of hole you're in terms of COVID. So I think that's why you bounced back so quickly, right?
Oh, absolutely. Here's the thing. First 2 times I got COVID, while I was able to bounce back after I got COVID, I got sick again and I reflared the symptoms and things the first couple times I got COVID because I freaked out and I didn't pace myself correctly. So with learning all the things that I learned inside the program of not only the physical aspect of pacing, but how my mindset needs to be set up and how my stress needs to be addressed, this third time, for the first time, I addressed COVID the proper way after I got COVID to make sure that I don't re-trigger long COVID or something like CFS ever again. It was something really powerful that helped me. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That mind shift or being in like a CFS body to being like a normal person, when did that kind of transition happen for you? Touch on that. Like, did it happen before you even fully recovered? You started seeing yourself as a normal person, or what did that look like?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you remember, man, but when we were on the mentorship calls with me as a thriver, not being a coach yet, I would actually tell the other folks in my cohort, I recovered mentally before I recovered physically. And I kept saying that over and over again, hoping that other people would genuinely believe me, because what I understood to be true at that time was that this was genuinely a mind-body illness, and really understanding and doing obviously my own due diligence and my research on how powerful the brain can affect the physical body, especially if it's in a sensitive state. Since the brain controls the nervous system, I really had to get a handle on my awareness of my thoughts, how I was thinking, how I was approaching stuff, how I was talking to myself. These things are really important, because if I didn't hammer this down, one aspect of recovery inside of the program, a really important concept was that if I don't get this down packed, or if I at least don't mitigate these negative thoughts and these actions that I'm taking within my mind effectively and appropriately in the beginning, then any type of physical pacing that's going to follow as a result will be met with just the same outcome, which ultimately led me stuck prior to joining the program all this time. So that was the thing that was really important for me, is in week 1, what you taught me in week 1 of the program was really raising my awareness, being really thoughtful, essentially about my thoughts and how I thought and my mindset. When I corrected that is when I started seeing physical progress, when I tried to pace and I started actually gaining traction for the first time, not even in a long time, but the first time in forever, to be completely honest.
Yeah. And so what was that like when you were, we call it like reintegrating back into the world, when you started hanging out with friends again and going out more with the girlfriend? What did that look like? I guess it was probably like a transition, but what was it like starting to do those normal things again? Did it feel weird, or were there worries that what if it's too much, or what did that feel like?
You know what's weird, man, is I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram and I see all of these recovery programs and these pages talking about how glorious recovery looks like on the other side when you finally get your life back and you do things for the first time. But in my personal experience, I can only speak for myself, me reintegrating back into life was actually quite messy. Because yes, while I was doing things for the first time in a long time, there's a level of anxiety to that. There's a level of fear to that. And there's a level of overcoming your fear to be able to be brave enough to go do things for the first time. So it's a little messy trying to reintegrate back into life, but it's totally worth it. There was obviously a transition period, but now that I'm on the other side, there is no more anxiety when I'm trying to do things. It is much more rewarding. Life is a lot better lived. And compared to how I was before I got sick, I used to just live life and be a very go rush type of person. I would get irritated really easily, but now life moves a lot more slower, not because I have to, but because it's done on purpose, just for the fact that my life has a little bit more purpose now.
Yeah. And that's what I found too. It's like you take more time to stop and smell the roses versus just sprinting your way through life, trying to get ahead, trying to be successful, and
Yeah.
putting all that pressure on yourself. You learn to actually enjoy the ride once you come out of this hypersensitive state. You realize actually that all these amazing things that you want to get back to doing, they were right in front of you the whole time. You just didn't take the time to appreciate it. So it's almost like you get a second go at life, and you can go into life with a blank slate. So what was that like for you? Because you overcame the fear of the symptoms, you overcame like all the crazy crashes and adjustment periods and all that stuff. What was it like right before you started transitioning back into the world, or integrating back into the world? Did you feel like it was a blank slate? Were you unsure of what you wanted to do? How did you go about doing that?
Yeah, there comes a realization of, now that I'm on the other side, life feels like it's finally 100%. And you make that realization during recovery of, was I ever even at 100% even before I got sick? Or was I operating at a high level but responding poorly to things emotionally? Maybe I was never even ever operating at 100%. What if I've been living at 80% my whole life? Now I need to take a look at the things that I prioritize and I love, and what do I want to do after recovery? What does that look like for me? And I had to really take a step back, take a look at my situation and say, I did such and such because it made me money. But after I recover, like you talk about with the blank slate, I actually want to do instead this and this because I understand that it makes me happy. And the power of positivity, happiness, and gratefulness, if it's intertwined with something that you do every day, so unbelievably important. So I really had to take a look in the mirror one day and said, what do I really want to do? Do I want to make money? Do I want to be happy? I chose the latter, to be honest, and so much sweeter on the other side. And I feel like you can say the same thing for yourself too, man.
Yeah, definitely. And let's dive even deeper into that.
Yeah.
As we evolve as people and we go through hardships and it molds our character, our values do change over time. And I did shift my values from all just progress, success, all of that, to more meaningful, fulfilling things. It's just, I say this many times, but I want to squeeze the most out of the lemon of life. Whereas before it was just, I didn't even know what I really wanted. It was just, I want to be successful. I want to feel important. And that's what caused me to reach that burnout phase, along with a bunch of other stressful events. But now it's more so living for fulfillment. Your life now compared to how you were before you got sick, what are some of the big differences? You shared a little bit of it, but what are some of the glaringly obvious things? For me, like I can say, it's much easier for me to take a day off when I do take a day off, right? And I can take a step back and I can tell when what I'm doing is not sustainable, and I'm able to actually take a step back. I'm able to set boundaries for myself because I think I will push myself harder than anybody will push me, but that can be a dangerous game too. Yeah. So I know how to keep it in check. But for you, what were some of those things?
I think for me, the thing is for me is that naturally I'm a very lighthearted person. I think anybody in the program could tell you that as well. Anyone who's ever talked to me, I'm a lighthearted, I'm for the most part carefree. I like a lot of humor. So I didn't make like a complete personality change. I only made the personality changes that were necessarily unhealthy for me. A lot of people think, oh, in order to go into recovery and make this change and get better on the other side, I have to completely change who I am. That's not actually 100% true. I bet there's a lot about you that's still the same as it was before, but there's a lot about you that changed, but for the better. You know what I mean? And that same thing for me. If I can speak for myself, I'm a lot more patient. I don't do things driven by this very shallow motivation. I do things now for the right reasons, for the genuine reasons, for the reasons that actually hold weight. Before, I did stuff for very shallow versions of validation. I wanted people to see me in a certain light. I enjoy being able to spend time doing things, but I'm spending time doing things without feeling the need to post every second on my Instagram or to have to. I have a lot more patience with just the things in my normal everyday life when it comes to just the intricacies and details of just my day, honestly. And it feels a lot more rewarding this way. I live for me for the first time.
Yeah. totally. No, I totally get what you're saying. And so for you, because some people watching this right now, they've sick with a hypersensitive nervous system for quite a long time, some of them months, some of them years, some of them decades. And when you're in that dark place, it feels like it's going to take a very long time to get better. It might not even seem possible. It seems like it's comparable to me sitting here today saying, tomorrow I'm going to go up Mount Everest without any training, without really knowing what I'm getting into. That's the mindset they have, because that's where I was at. In terms of your expectations for recovery that you had in the beginning and how fast it did happen, did it surprise you of how fast you could actually get your life back and start living again?
I did. I think I read somewhere on Google that recovery takes anywhere from 1.5 to 2 years. So that's the expectation that I set for myself. But I come to realize that not everybody's situation is set up the same. I have literally witnessed people in the program recover in 3 weeks, but there are going to be some people in the program that take my amount of time or maybe even a little bit longer. But regardless of how long it takes or how your life is set up, the whole point of this is that we want you to be in a better position than where you were yesterday. And even if that can take place, that's more than enough, to be completely honest, because it's just a stepping stone. It's one step at a time, day by day. And if it did take me 1.5 years, maybe for me it was a little bit less, then that's okay. But the thing that I really needed to understand was that even if I asked Miguel that question, because I did ask you actually often, how long do you think it's going to take me, man? That was the wrong question to ask, because behind that question was fueled by impatience, an emotion that perpetuates the illness. So probably by you hearing me ask that question, you knew I wasn't really making the mind shifts that I needed to make. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're on that other side in that dark place saying, oh my God, my mindset is so terrible, it's going to take me such and such time to recover, I want to tell you that's not true. It takes one step at a time. Find some guidance if you can, but it's not going to take as long as you think. Miguel gave me an answer, and the reality was actually faster.
Yeah. I think I gave you an answer when you were still couch bound and like barely going for walks. And I think I told you as well. I said, I remember saying something like, I don't want to tell you exactly how long I think it's going to take. I'll tell you a little bit longer or something like that. And I told you, but I was like, just disregard that. Forget about it. Don't even pay attention to the time that I gave you. And then you did end up starting to really get your life back a lot. And it's so cool to see, because that felt like a long time ago. That was a year ago. But even for me, so much has happened since then, especially for you. Like it's a totally different scenario you're in today than you were in like 12 months ago. Like on weekends, you can actually say, hey, let's go out. Let's go to that restaurant. Let's have some fun. Hey, let's go to Disneyland, without having to really think twice about it. When the weekends come along, what do you like to do? And what are some things you can do that's like on the list that you couldn't do last year, that were like nearly impossible last
Whatever
year?
the heck I want. I can literally do anything I want on the weekends. If I want to go travel and go see you, I could. That's the thing. If I want to go hang out at home, I can. I don't feel bad about it either way. That's the thing. But the difference is that I have the capacity to now do pretty much whatever I want. That's the nice thing about recovery, is that when life comes back, the world is literally my playground at this point. It's just a matter of what I feel like doing or not. There's not really a limitation.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And with recovery comes freedom of people, places, things, freedom of options of people, places, and things. You just have a lot more you can do. Whereas like earlier on in your recovery, your options of doing things are very limited. It's like either go warm up my food on my own, or go take a shower today, or go sit outside for 5 minutes, or eat at the dinner table with everybody else for 10 minutes. It's like very limited, right? So as you get better, your world really starts to open up. Oh, yeah. So it's really cool to see. And in terms of dealing with stressful situations or dealing with adversities, how would you say you're like now, right? Because that's a concern of a lot of people. They're like, once I get better, will I be able to handle life again when things come up? So how is it like for you handling stress, not even just with work, but like outside of work when things come up?
Yeah. Comparing myself before the illness and now, I'm essentially in that aspect unrecognizable. It's not the same person at all. Things that would mess me up emotionally in the past, they don't even get through the door anymore, if that makes sense. So I am in such a heightened state emotionally now that there's very few things that can climb that ladder and actually make it up to me at the top if it's not worth my time when it comes to just negative emotions, when it comes to things that genuinely don't matter. Obviously, if it's a real pressing thing or something that actually matters or a real emergency that's worth my time and attention, absolutely. I'm going to worry about it a little bit. I'm going to tend to it a little bit, but like you say to me all the time, man, proactive versus reactive. Before I got sick, I was a very reactive person.
Yeah, me too. I think we all were. That's why we get really sick, right? Symptoms show up. Oh, shoot. What do we do now? Whereas, like, when you understand everything, in a sense, we are proactive about the symptoms and the adjustment periods, and being proactive is huge with it. So, yeah, your ability to deal with stress, it's really good. I think better than most people.
Thanks, man.
And that's what I try to tell people. It's like, the goal isn't just to get back to the life you were living before. Because if you go back to being that same person, you're going to end up in the same scenario. And I've done that. I did that for about 3 years. I got sick, then I got a little bit better, then I got sicker, then I got better, then I got even sicker until I was completely bedridden. But I think what people have to understand is they can't go back to the same place they were. They can't go back to the exact same mindset they had before, the same traits. And just like you said, they don't have to completely reinvent themselves. They just have to level up in certain areas.
And that's a trend that I see, man. Very common for people who have recovered is that they deal with stress very well. Like I talk to you a lot behind the scenes because we coach together. And I can speak for you because I have experience. I've literally witnessed you. You handle stress, like an unbelievable amount of stress behind the scenes, like better than some of my other friends who handle multiple businesses. I can tell when someone has a regulated nervous system and someone who's recovered versus somebody who doesn't have a regulated nervous system. Same thing with when I spoke to Raylan on my interview as well. Just having a conversation before the interview even started, I could tell how she responded to stress. I know why she got better. There's totally a pattern.
Exactly. I say that's the golden rule in recovery, but that also translates to real life. And I think the biggest curveball that came your way that could have totally, if you weren't in the right mindset and didn't pretty much practice the principles of recovery, it totally could have derailed you, was getting COVID or getting really sick or something like that happening. So when something like that happens, when you do get a curveball and life tries to derail you, how did you get through that? Because obviously it brought up a lot of old memories and you felt a lot of symptoms you felt before. I tell people too, just because you get your life back doesn't mean you're never, ever going to feel symptoms again. Like you could have a headache if you don't sleep enough. You could have brain fog if you don't sleep enough. You eat something wrong, your stomach could hurt. Can get body aches and pains if you pull an all-nighter. So it's not like you're never, ever going to feel these things, but it's up to you. It's within your control of how much stress you put on yourself. When you got hit with life curveballs, what was that like? And was there a sense of kind of vulnerability there where you started questioning things, and how did you get things back on track?
Yeah, of course. I dealt with multiple curveballs throughout my recovery. Some were worse than others. Some were trauma-based. Some were completely out of my control. But the thing is, you have to ask yourself when these things come up, if this is a mind-body illness and it's really heavily weighing towards the mindset, and you're having something come up and your mindset is going off the rails, if we want to practice a good mindset, are we going to practice focusing on the negatives, or are we going to practice focusing on the positives? Because that's the one thing I tried my best to do, even when crap hit the fan. It's, yeah, I understand this is a bad situation. I'm going to respond well to this now, because what happens after I recover and something else like this happens? How am I going to respond? This illness is literally teaching me how to become successful, not only in recovery, but in life, period. So I need to try my best to work out everything that's not working well and really focus on the things that I can be grateful for. I was actually sharing a picture with Adrienne and Krista, some fellow coaches inside the program, and it was a picture of a forest. It was a very dark forest, right? But there's just a little light in the distance. And I was telling Adrienne, you sure as heck bet if I'm lost in the forest and I see that little light, I'm running towards that. But if you take a look at the overall picture, 90% of the picture is black. All you need is that little glimmer of light. That's your ticket out. So for me, it was like no matter how hard it got, those curveballs that came, I was chased by a dog in the middle of recovery when I could barely walk. Like, so many things could go wrong. There was a lot of blackness in the situation, but I really needed to pay attention to that little ounce of light, because that little ounce of light in the distance, it could be someone's house, it could be somebody walking with a flashlight in the forest. That's the thing, if you run towards it, that's going to save your life if you're stuck in that forest. So for me, paying attention to the positives and paying attention to the things that were going right in a bad situation, that's the thing that saved me in those situations. And practicing that constantly, that's the thing that made me recover as well. One of the main things I can say.
That's huge. That light in the forest analogy, it's so true, because sometimes you get dealt a hand that, like, what other option do you have than to try to focus on the positive? Because if you don't do that, then it is just a downward spiral. So when the odds are stacked against you, that's where you're forced to really train your mind to see the positive in something, or not even see the positive, but just try to stay neutral or handle this the best you can. Because I think something that this teaches you, not just dealing with symptoms, but it teaches you to focus on what you have control over, right? It teaches you the difference between, okay, I definitely have control over this scenario or these variables, and whatever happened here, I can't control these things. So I cannot get lost worrying about those things. I have to be mindful of them, but I have to put my energy into what I can control. Not all these hypotheticals and things like that. You know, that analogy is huge. You have to focus on those small things that stand out, and it could be a city in the distance. But as you get closer and closer to it, as you move forward in recovery, your world starts to open up. You get to do more things. You feel a little bit more alive as you go through that process. So for you, just so we can inspire some people watching this right now, what were some of your favorite kind of moments in recovery, or not even moments, scenarios in recovery, where you went to Disneyland, right? You went on that cruise until you got COVID on that cruise. And then there were a bunch of other fun things you did, but what were a few of those? And maybe just describe that so people can see that even though you were at rock bottom and you were feeling hopeless at one point, there was a life after that moving forwards. Okay. Let's touch on that.
Of course. I think some of the key wins that I had during recovery, funny enough, some of my best moments in my life were actually not after recovery. It was during recovery, which was crazy to think, right? Like, they were on the way instead of like when I finally got to the destination. And I think it's because I was like starting to reintroduce things for the first time in a long time, but they actually felt like I was doing it for the first time in actually ever. So some things that I can remember specifically are like when I sent you a picture of that pizza and was like, dude, yeah, I'm eating pizza for the first time in a long time. Yeah, the cruise with my friends, that was a big thing too. I had went to a fall festival. That was a big win for me because it was the first time I was actually out and around a lot of people for the first time. And to everybody else, it was funny. I was walking around the fall festival and I asked my girlfriend, like, this feels a little bit strange to me. I haven't been around people. And my girlfriend tells me, if you asked anybody how you look, they wouldn't suspect a thing. It's funny how that works. Same thing with the wedding. Yeah, I can say that too. Went to my buddy's wedding. This was actually very recently as well. And I was the best man. Really happy that this program was able to get me there because just not too long ago, I was very debilitated. I couldn't walk. I couldn't eat a thing. So many symptoms. So yeah, just happy.
Especially earlier on in your recovery, you were trying to go to Disneyland and you first went there in a wheelchair the first one or two times. And even that was a bit much for you. And then next thing you know, you're walking around Disneyland or Disney without a wheelchair or anything. Man, just touch on that. What was that like to be able to do that again when you were actually able to walk around Disney and not have to really think about your steps? It's surreal, right? It's hard to explain for people, but it feels strangely normal when you can do those things again sometimes. But
it's funny, right? Because like we dream about being able to do these things when you're so debilitated. You know what it actually feels like? It feels just familiar, if that makes sense. It feels like you should have been doing it the whole time and you're just grateful to be back. But it's, for me, it was like, it's nice to be back. Like, I wanted this for a long time, but it feels strangely familiar and it almost doesn't feel like I missed out on too much. Does that make sense, man?
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely doesn't feel like you missed out on too much. The world isn't drastically different for most people.
Which is
I
weird
think
because when we're recovering, we're like, oh, everyone's leaving me behind. I have
yeah,
so much FOMO.
yeah, exactly. And I heard this saying, someone was talking about it, and it was a really great analogy. It's like recovery can be one of the most exciting times in someone's life that they can experience. It's because of the acceleration of life. Let's say if you're driving a car and you're going 200 miles per hour, you don't really feel the speed you're going at. You feel like it's fast, but you're just driving in the car. You're at a constant speed. But what's more exciting than that is going from 0 to 200 miles per hour, that acceleration to that speed. So when you're starting way down here in your activity levels and your capacity, and you're working your way up to this level up here, for me, that was the most exciting part. I think even nowadays, I don't think I'm as excited now as I was back when I was coming out of the hospital for that first year, because it's every month the progress was like exponential. Some months would be tougher than others, but overall it was like growth, progress, and it was wild. But then once you get to that normal level of living, that acceleration decreases because you're already at a pretty constant speed, living life pretty fast. So it's really interesting, it's super interesting how that works. But I think that's when it's really important to find purpose and meaning in your days and find something fulfilling, like reinvent yourself and figure out what's important to you. So we talked about this, but you would say your values now and what you find really important is different from what it was a couple of
Absolutely.
years ago or when you were
Absolutely.
sick.
Yeah. Things take priority now. When I spend time, I make sure I'm fully present. If I spend money, if it doesn't serve my actual genuine purpose of why I do what I do, don't spend money. That's the thing. If you're going to recover, if you're going to actually try a program or do something, mean it. Do it all the way. Do it 100%. If you're going to say you're going to do something, even if it's a little favor, do it 100% all the way. Things now behind me have meaning. Before I was sick, I would say I would do something and totally forget. If I were to spend time at the dinner table, I'm looking at my phone. I don't do stuff like that anymore. Life has a lot more weight.
Yeah, totally. So it's been just over a year since you've started on this recovery journey. Well, not the recovery journey, but got on the right path. And a lot has changed in the last year. Where do you want to be a year from now? What do you want to be doing?
Just keep going up, man. My energy is already up, to be honest, and I got everything I asked for. If I elevate higher than this emotionally and all I can do is just plan to grow and just live my life, I'm at a place where I'm content. I never thought I would say this, dude. Like, whether we're recording or not, before I actually wanted to be like, famous or known for something or be like a great person. But right now, even if I just have a decent job that pays and I have the wife with the house and the picket fence and the dog, and I can take vacations every now and then and have a good, solid group of friends that I communicate with like regularly, I'm okay with that, dude. Seriously, like I'm happy. That idea of that makes me happy. I'm not chasing the glory anymore, to be honest. And I feel like a big reason of why I did it in the first place was for the wrong reasons. And I think a lot of us can identify with that, to be honest.
Yeah. So it's a whole different Junior than a year ago. And we're constantly evolving. We'll be different people 6 months from now, 12 months from now. And I truly believe in personal development. I think CFS and going through this journey is probably the most intense personal development boot camp you could ever go through.
Oh, hell
It's
yeah.
like a boot camp on steroids for finding out who you are and what's important to you and figuring out what your character is made of. It's one of the hardest journeys, probably the hardest journey you'll ever partake on, because you're with you 24/7. Like no one's there with you at 2 a.m. when you're sitting there in bed or lying there and you're feeling those symptoms. You figure out who you really are when you're going through that pain. So I think it's like the ultimate personal development journey, but it's like very extreme. But what you get out of it is you get out a lot, right? I think the benefits are a lot more than the drawbacks. If you can make it to the other side, right? If you can just get on the right track. And I truly believe as long as people have had their tests and scans and all of that done, the doctors don't have any answers, and it is a hypersensitive nervous system, they can absolutely get to the other side and live an even better life than before. Just like you've shown, and Adrienne and Chris is well on her way, and so many other people in the program. Anything you want to share that you want people to know about what life could be like once you start getting better again?
I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of how the old me would interpret this video, because when it's just you and me talking, man, we talk from two people on the perspective that we're already on the other side. But I'm trying to think of, if someone's actually watching this video, what would Sick Junior think about? And Sick Junior, I'm going to be completely honest, would watch this and say, they're talking about wins, mindset, and personality. I can't freaking walk.
Yeah.
Do I even have CFS if they're talking about something that I can't relate to? Like, they're not talking about the physical aspects of, guys, I understand that you guys can't walk. I understand you can't eat. I understand you're hurting physically, but also understand how powerful the brain is in controlling the physical body. And I understand maybe you didn't think yourself into this illness. Maybe it was a virus, or you underwent a very traumatic event or something that triggered you into this. Yes, I get that. You can get triggered into this illness. Almost everybody gets triggered into this illness manually by something like a virus or something traumatic or something the body actually identifies as very dangerous and threatening at the time. But that was the time that you got sick. Whatever that was there is gone. And what the old Junior would want the current Junior to tell him right now is, Junior, I know you got a flu back in 2019. I know you've been to the ER multiple times. I know you're scared. I know you're scouring YouTube right now, looking at all of Raylan and Heal with Liz, and you're following all these long COVID forums. I know you're trying all these diets. I know you're watching videos to hear something that you can relate to. Junior, dude, this is a mind-body illness. What made you sick was the flu. What made you sick was a traumatic event. I understand that. But I'm telling you this from the future. What's keeping you sick is your personality and your mindset and your lack of inability to physically pace. Get yourself a coach, join a program. I don't care what it is, but look into this mind-body stuff, because that's what chronic fatigue is at its core. Seriously. And I'm speaking to all of the little mini future juniors out there that are going to be watching this, because I've been in your shoes. Miguel has been in your shoes too. It's hard to believe that the mind can give you such debilitating physical symptoms. I promise you, if you join a program, even if it's a little bit more money than you think you can afford, your ER bills, your hospital bills, your lack of a job that you just lost because you can't do anything physically will add up more to the expense of investing into a program that can potentially save you money way down the line once you fully get your life back. I promise. I promise.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so powerful, because I remember when you came on board, even you had trouble even coming on board because you weren't really working. And then we actually came up with a payment plan at that time.
Correct. Yeah.
If, let's say you had decided, maybe this isn't for me, let me just try to continue doing it on my own. And you said that to me like last January when you came on board. Where do you think you'd be right now, man? Because you probably would have made some progress, but
I'd be freaking underwater in hospital bills, bro. I would be going to the ER still constantly, begging doctors to tell me what's wrong, not knowing what's wrong with me, and probably spending thousands of dollars on supplements and being in these Facebook groups. I probably would have spent way more on that stuff that wouldn't have gotten me better anyways than being in this program and investing in it. It not only stopped me from going to the ER, it stopped me from buying supplements and medications that I probably didn't need. It gave me income back. It gave me my job back. Once you guys get your lives back and you go back to work, like I said, it doesn't have to be us.
Yeah. Just get help. Like, you don't do this on your own. That's the biggest thing. If you can find someone who you resonate with and it makes sense for you, and maybe you've watched a bunch of their free stuff, or you've done something with them and you've seen some progress, get the help. Because I needed the help, and I needed the help, and I needed it from my doctor, and you needed the help. You got it from the program and myself. And that extra help makes all the difference in the world. Like, even you, when you were pretty much recovered and you got COVID a couple times and it almost derailed you, you just needed some reminders. You were messaging me and it just took a few reminders. That's it. But
Yeah, dude.
had you not had access to that support or that kind of mental safety net, it would have been very different.
I
Sometimes
would have
you
been
need that
spending money
extra
going
help.
back to the ER again.
Yeah. No,
You honestly
it's
probably
massive.
saved me 6 figures, dude, in bills, to be
Oh,
completely
there's
honest.
plenty of people who spend a lot of money. It's painful to see. And that's why we have a money back guarantee as well, because we only want to let people in if we're super confident we can help them. And if we can't, then we don't deserve their money. Go use that on other things that may be more helpful. So anyways, man, it's been a great chat. Really appreciate your time. And we should definitely do more of these, because
Heck
I
yeah,
know we
man.
could talk all day about anything recovery related. So for you guys watching this right now, I hope you got lots of value out of this, especially if you're really coming out of that dark place and you're really building momentum, or if you're looking for momentum or looking for inspiration. Junior, 12 months ago, he was still mainly couch bound. He was just starting to walk to his mailbox again, just starting to get functional. He wasn't able to work. Now he works nearly full time. Now he can travel. He could go speak as a best man at a wedding. He can go on cruises. He's been resilient. He's handled 2 rounds of COVID, and one even put you in the hospital, bounce back from that. So you can become anti-fragile. You're not going to be fragile forever. And a lot can happen in 6 months, in 10 months, in 12 months. You could be in a totally different life 12 months from now, but that starts today. And
Absolutely.
what you decide to do moving forward, whether it's watching more YouTube videos, applying for a program, or deciding to get extra help, get the extra help, because it can be one of those moments in life where it leads you down a totally separate, it changes the trajectory of everything, that one decision. So
Absolutely.
hope you guys got value out of this video. If you did, make sure to hit that like button, comment down below what was your biggest takeaway from this video, and we hopefully to see you in the program one day, or even better if not, because that means you would have recovered. We put out tons of this content, and I hope you guys enjoy this 1 year recovery transformation interview with Junior. Thanks, Junior.
Thanks, man.
Awesome. See you guys in the next video.
See you guys later.